Hello, I'm Lena. No, that's not the name I was given at birth. The first name they called me, the one that tightened around my heart every time it echoed, shattered something inside me. I won't mention that name here, because it didn't belong to me. It belonged to someone else. But back then, no one knew that. In primary school, it was just a word. Every morning during roll call, I would raise my hand quietly and say, "Here." I sat in a corner of the classroom, trying not to draw attention, even when I had to raise my hand. During games, I stood by the sidelines, watching the girls jump rope, burning inside with the desire to join them. But I was supposed to stand with the boys. I could never keep up with their running and roughhousing. Once, in the second grade, my mom came to pick me up from school. As I waited by the door, she called out that name. I looked up, but there was an emptiness inside me. I didn't understand why. I wondered why every activity and game separated girls and boys. The PE teacher wouldn't let girls play football, saying their legs would become crooked when they grew up. But when I tried to jump rope, he told me to leave the girls alone. My classmates mocked me for being too polite that day. The teacher said, "You need to toughen up. Boys don't cry." As I mulled over his words, my mom didn't even ask why I was so quiet. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she didn't notice. But I never forgot that day. Middle school was even more complicated. As my body changed, my relationship with mirrors crumbled. Just being in the locker room during PE was a battle. Girls on one side, boys on the other, and I belonged to neither. At home, I would wear clothes from my mom's closet and stand in front of the mirror. In those moments, I felt like I had found myself. But those moments were brief. At the sound of footsteps, I would quickly return to how I was before. High school was a fight for survival. The hallways felt like I was walking on a tightrope, each step measured and cautious. I avoided locker rooms entirely, arranging my PE classes so I could change at home or in empty bathrooms. My friendships were fragile, built on glass foundations that could shatter with a single wrong word. But I found solace in books, in stories of characters who rediscovered themselves and defied expectations. In the quiet of the library, I sketched new versions of myself in the margins of my notebooks, imagining who I could become. University felt like spring after a long winter. I met others who carried the same quiet ache, who understood the weight of pretending. We sat under the wide branches of old trees, sharing stories that didn't need explanation. For the first time, I spoke my name aloud, Lena. It tasted right, like honey melting on my tongue. One friend, soft-spoken but fierce in her own way, smiled when she heard it. "It fits," she said simply, as if it had always been mine. And I believed her. I remember standing by the river one evening, the sky painted in golds and purples. My reflection wavered in the water, but for once I didn't feel fractured. The name Lena echoed inside me, filling the spaces where I once felt hollow. Now, when I hear it, I don't flinch. I turn and I smile. The path wasn't easy. It was tangled and long. But with each step, I stitched myself together. And slowly, gently, I became Lena, the person I had always been beneath the surface. Finding out who I was at university was just the beginning. But the journey didn't end there. Law school was tough, and books piled on my desk like towers. But every word, every clause, nurtured the sense of justice that had long taken root inside me. I remember the nights spent in rundown campus cafes, studying until dawn after exams. A friend once laughed and said, "You're going to be a great lawyer someday." I laughed too, but deep down, a spark ignited. On graduation day, I felt powerful in my gown. My hair fell to my shoulders, and when they called my name as I stepped onto the stage, it wrapped around me like a warm embrace. Lena. I walked that stage as Lena. With my diploma in hand, The next chapter of my life began to unfold. When I was admitted to the bar, my heart drifted back to those childhood days. That little girl, the one who hid in shadows and borrowed dresses from her mother's closet, now stood tall in courtrooms. When I looked into my clients' eyes, I often saw glimpses of myself, fear, loneliness, but a flicker of hope. I took on cases defending LGBT plus rights. During my first trial, my hands trembled, but my voice remained steady. This is a matter of justice, I declared, and everyone heard me. Over time, I became more than just a lawyer. I became an activist. I decided to fight for others, against the society that once shamed a 16-year-old girl for buying a dress. I gave speeches at universities and inspired high school students. When I said, being yourself is not a crime, I saw hope gleam in the eyes of the young people listening. Today, my graduation gown hangs in my office. Next to it is the first dress I ever bought, simple but full of meaning. Sometimes I glance at it and smile, because that dress is a symbol of the road I started on. Now, Lena is not just a name. She is the voice of justice, a lawyer who makes the invisible visible. And my journey continues.